Yeah. Hi guys. Is my voice is audible for you? Like, if my voice is audible, just kindly inform me. Yeah. Hi, Vamsi bro. Yeah. చాలా రోజుల తర్వాత bro మళ్ళీ class. Because we are having out some trips and industrial visits in college. That is why I couldn't conduct the things. Okay. So last class, we have discussed like some of the things like what is meant by the SOC and what is the areas of the SOC will be working out and what are the టైర్స్ ఆఫ్ దన్ సాక్ టైర్స్ మనకి ఎట్లా వర్క్ చేస్తుంది అండ్ మనకి సాక్ ఎన్వైర్న్మెంట్ ఎట్లా ఉంటుంది కంపెనీలో సాక్ లెవెల్స్ ఎట్లా ఉంటాయి ఈచ్ అండ్ ఎవ్రీథింగ్ మనం తెలుసుకున్నాం అంటే దట్ మీన్స్ అన్ ఓవర్ వ్యూ ఆఫ్ దన్ సాక్ దట్ వీ హ్యావ్ సీన్ రైట్. సో now what we'll be doing means we'll be seeing about then what is then a proper network. నెట్వర్క్లో మనకి ఎలాంటి టైప్ ఆఫ్ ద నెట్వర్కింగ్ అనేది ఉంటుంది, ఎలాంటి టైప్ ఆఫ్ ద రివ్యూ సెట్టింగ్స్ అనేది మనం ఎట్లా చేయాలనేది సాక్ ఉంటుంది. సో స్ప్లంక్ మనం ప్రాక్టికల్గా అనేటప్పటికి ఒక 2 to 3 డేస్ తర్వాత వెళ్దాం. ఫస్ట్ మనకి కోర్ కాన్సెప్ట్స్ అనేవి సాక్లో అనేది కంప్లీట్గా మనం అనేది తెలుసుకుందాం. బికాస్ వితౌట్ హ్యాంగ్ అప్ ఆన్ ద ప్రాపర్ బేసిక్ స్టాండర్డ్స్ even after this boot camp also you will be not able to sit it in an interview point of view, because at the end of the last our community mode is to make you an industry ready as well as an interview ready to make sure that you are landing inside a job. So now what we are going to do means today we are going to see about then what are the networks that we need to know and what are the types of the events, alerts, anomalies మనకి ఎట్లా ఉంటాయి, ఇన్సిడెంట్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ సిస్టమ్స్. మనకి ఇన్సిడెంట్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ సిస్టమ్స్ అనేది మనకి టైం ఉంటే మనం చూసుకుందాం, లేకపోతే విల్ బీ స్టాపింగ్ విత్ టిల్ దెన్ అపాన్ దెన్ వాట్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ దెన్ ఈవెంట్స్ అండ్ ద అలర్ట్స్. సో టుమారో విల్ బీ డీలింగ్ విత్ దెన్ ఆల్ దీస్ కైండ్స్ ఆఫ్ ద థింగ్స్. సో డైలీ మనకి క్లాస్ అనేది 10:15కి ఉంటుంది. సో ఇఫ్ చేంజెస్ ద టైమ్ దెన్ ఐ విల్ బీ ఇన్ఫార్మింగ్ యూ ఇన్ దెన్ గ్రూప్. I hope my screen is visible, which is a notepad. So today I doesn't have on then my tablet, that is why I'm showing it today on the notepad. So today we'll be seeing upon then what is the network monitoring. That means then what kind of a network we required for the SOC. నా స్పెల్లింగ్స్ ఏమైనా తప్పు ఉంటే దయచేసి ట్రోల్ మాత్రం చేయకండి, బికాజ్ ఐఎమ్ వీక్ ఎట్ దన్ స్పెల్లింగ్స్. ఓకే. సో వెన్ కమ్స్ the SOC networking, so that means we called as an defense sector, or then we called as an blue teaming networking, or then defensible networking. So in that first and then foremost things we'll be hang up on the different kinds of the networks. So like మీరు చూసినప్పుడు లైక్ ఓపెన్ నెట్వర్క్ ఆర్ దెన్ క్లోజ్ నెట్వర్క్ ఆర్ మనకి ల్యాన్ ప్యాన్ అలాంటివి కాదు మన నెట్వర్కింగ్ అని చూసేది, టీసీపీ ఐపీ ఆ నెట్వర్కింగ్ కాదు. ఇట్స్ the networking what we are going to see means how we are going to control the network as well as on how we are going to see the network. అంటే మనకి డెస్క్ మన టేబుల్ దగ్గర కూర్చొని మనం ఎలాంటి టైప్ ఆఫ్ ద నెట్వర్క్ని వ్యూ చేస్తున్నాం, వెదర్ మనం మానిటర్ చేస్తున్నామా, కంట్రోల్ చేస్తున్నామా, లేదా మెజర్ చేస్తున్నామా అనేది ఏ టైప్ ఆఫ్ ద నెట్వర్క్లో మనం చూస్తున్నాం అనేది. సో టుడే వీ విల్ బి గెటింగ్ టు నో ఇచ్ దట్ థింగ్స్. ద ఫస్ట్ అండ్ దెన్ ఫార్మోస్ట్ థింగ్స్ దట్ వీ నీడ్ టు నో అబౌట్ ఇస్ అన్ మానిటర్డ్ నెట్వర్క్. So monitored network is nothing but either it might be both the host network as well as a normal network, host data or the normal network data, because we will be hanging about the two types of the networks, right, when it comes towards an interchanging of the communications. So monitored network in the sense means in the name itself only we can understand monitoring, that means which is an capturing as well as an centralizing. So this is one of an easiest as well as an cheapest way to develop a proper structure or any kind of an enterprise to take upon the statistics of a data or to see any kind of the data. So in the monitored data we'll be accessing out the data from different kinds of the sources. Either it might be then firewall, or it might be a router, or any kind of a DNS, or any kind of an proxies, or any kind of an logs. So what we are going to do, we are going to save that particular data and we are going to capture that particular data and we are going to view that data. It means then we are going to create a centralized baseline of a network. So that is what then monitored network in the sense means. So కాస్త ల్యాగ్ ఉంటే like refresh the things and just view it out, because I'm hanging upon then today some internet search. So next let us understand about then claimed network. So what is this claimed network? Claimed networks is nothing but services, owner of the services, basically how many operations has been planned, how many assets has been there. So these are nothing but claimed networks. So this is what then claimed networks in the sense means. So next we have then assessed networks. Assessed networks is called as an weakness identified, which can be penetrated easily, where we need to test our defense at that core area. So next we have a measured network. So measured network is nothing but it is a SOC oriented or then IT measuring network. So that is what the measured network in the sense means. So actually here we will be using upon all the blue teaming of measuring steps. All the areas will be working out like then blue teaming as well as an IT services. So these are the kinds of the networks which you will be seeing under the SOC. Other than this, do we have any other types of the networks? Obviously yes. So we have the minimized networks, we have an uncontrolled networks, we have unclaimed networks. So like that we have the lot of the types that we have. So if anyone having any kind of an doubts, so just keep it in the chat so that I can, because you are not there in with me in the live, right? You are just viewing the stream in the live. So that is why make sure you are utilizing upon the chat session. So let us understand then what are the monitoring ways that we have. మనం ఎట్లా monitoring అనేది చేయొచ్చు any kind of a network. So usually we'll be hanging around then two ways of the monitoring. So what are those two ways that we have? One is an endpoint, or which is we called as an application monitoring, and we'll be hanging upon the network monitoring. So these are the two kinds of the monitorings that we have. So whenever you are monitoring any kind of a network, what are all the things that you need to see? అంటే మనం నెట్వర్క్ మానిటరింగ్ అనేది చేస్తాం యూజువల్గా, బికాజ్ మనకి ఆ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ అండ్ థ్రెడ్స్ కావచ్చు లేదా డిఫరెంట్ కైండ్స్ ఆఫ్ దెన్ యాక్టివిటీస్ మనకి తెలియాలనుకుంటే ఆబ్వియస్లీ వీ నీడ్ టు మానిటర్ ద నెట్వర్క్. దట్ ఈస్ హౌ అవర్ బ్లూ టీమింగ్ ఈజ్ యూజువల్లీ వర్క్స్ అవుట్, రైట్? So when we are seeing upon our network, when we are monitoring our network, what are the considerations that we need to take? So one is an bandwidth. Next is an what are the different kinds of ports, because then ports are the one who plays upon a critical role inside any kind of a network. So ఇక్కడ నేను షార్ట్ కట్లో రాస్తాను కన్సిడరేషన్స్ అని. సో వన్ ఈజ్ అన్ bandwidth. So next is an ports, that means then which ports are being utilized. So next we need to check it out then what type of then protocols are equipped with then open ports, because those are one of the aspect that we need to check, because then hackers are always target for then protocols. So next, what kind of an application, that means then what kind of an assets are being utilized on the services which are opened, and how many domains are being worked or visited by then whom. So next, what are the data packets that we are getting out, whether we are getting out then any unusual data packets or the regular data packets, whether any suspicious network or then unencrypted network or then suspicious network are coming or not. That means then a proper traffic monitoring is there or not. So that is the things that we need to get it out. So for all these things we have one solutions. So you might be hang up on the questions. How we'll be seeing out these all the considerations. So for all these considerations, we usually will be hang out called as a network security. It's called as a network security monitoring. So in the network security monitoring, what we will be doing out? So we will be analyzing out the network traffic, which is in a motion. That means which is in a live condition or in a viewable condition. So that is the network which we are going to analyze. So when it comes to network monitoring, what kind of services that we are going to monitor? So services in the sense means what? Say మనం యూజువల్గా డైలీ లైఫ్ దెన్ ప్రోటోకాల్స్ అవే which is called as an DNS, which is called as an HTTP or HTTPS. Both we usually monitor. We usually do about an SSH, FTPs, which is a file transfer protocols, and RDPs in the remote locations for the corporate offices, and we'll be hanging upon SMBs and SMTPs, like different kinds of the network services అనేది మనం యూజువల్గా మానిటర్ అనేది కంపల్సరీగా చేయాల్సిందే. That means we need to monitor at all these things. So whenever we are checking out these network data, so if we see any kind of an suspicious behavior, so suspicious behavior in the sense means what? Any kind of an suspicious file transfers, any kind of an exploits, or any kind of an pivoting, or any kind of an data infiltrations. So for these aspects only we usually monitor the networks to see whether the data is in a normal motion or not. So for that purpose only we are going to see whether our network traffic is in a condition or not. So this is how we usually monitor. This is what we are going to monitor. So till now, does anyone have any doubts? Okay. So from tomorrow point of view, what we are going to do means rather than streaming, so we are going to give you a Zoom link so that you can join and you can always ask us the doubts and you can do upon a kind of an interactive session. So that is what we are going to see. Okay. So whenever we are doing any type, like either it is an endpoint monitoring or whether it is an application monitoring, which we called as an commonly continuous security monitoring. So in these areas, what we are going to see. So usually at an endpoint, what kind of a data we'll be getting out? Endpoint data antene manaki usually we are at an data at the rest. So that means what we are going to have here. So we are going to have different kinds of services, different kinds of vulnerability scannings, or configurations, or then baseline monitorings that we need to do, or we need to check it out then file registries, or whether then file integrity that we need to check it out. So when we are caring about then applications, so authentication logs, access logs, security logs, so these are the kinds that we need to do at the application side. So that is what we are doing. So when comes an endpoint monitoring దగ్గర మనకి సోర్సెస్ ఎట్లా వస్తాయి? లైక్ యూజువల్గా నేను ఎండ్ పాయింట్ మానిటరింగ్ చేయాలి, అప్లికేషన్ మానిటరింగ్ చేస్తామని చెప్తున్నాను కదా. సో యూజువల్లీ హౌ వీల్ బి గెటింగ్ అవుట్ దీస్ ఎండ్ పాయింట్ మానిటరింగ్ సోర్సెస్ యాజ్ వెల్ as an application. First let us understand about the endpoint monitoring sources. So endpoint monitoring sources usually called as security logging sources. So we usually have on the EDRs, XDRs, endpoint protection suites, and next we have the antivirus solutions, and we have the host based intrusion detection systems, host based intrusion prevention systems, and next we have the vulnerability scanners. So these are then some of the ways that we will be hanging out the sources. So when it comes to the application, so one is an authentication logs and service logs, process logs, access logs, and one more way we will usually get about then audit logs. So do we have any other sources? Obviously yes, we have a lot of another sources for these two areas. I hope you doesn't have any doubts. If you have any doubts, you can keep it out in either in our WhatsApp group, or you can keep it out in inside then this YouTube channel chat. సో ఇవే కాకుండా మనకి ఏమైనా మానిటరింగ్ ఇంకా ఎక్కువ చేయాలా, ఇంకా ఏమైనా సోర్సెస్ మనం చెప్పాలా? సో do we have any other ways to monitor the any kind of another data? So do we need to look it out into the other sources? Obviously yes. What about then cloud? So where we need to do? Only the network is not only then current ways that we are using out then data sources, right? Even then cloud we are using, right? So where will we going for then cloud? Because cloud isn't currently where the data level of an abstraction is at then high. How do we log them? So first is an function as an services, like we need to use about the different kinds of then services that we have. That means then we need to use upon an application logs, we need to use upon the platform logs. So we have then host logs, which is called an infrastructure as a service, and cloud vendors logs, like which we call as an management logs. Like for example, like we have an AWS service usages and Oracle service usages, Google Cloud Platform service usages, account management services. These are the areas that where we need to get it out then data for the cloud. So does anyone have any doubts? Okay, so let us move towards the next part. సో ఇప్పుడు దాకా మనం ఏమేం చెప్పుకున్నాం అనేది, లైక్ ఐ విల్ గివ్ అపాన్ ద ఓల్డ్ అండ్ సమ్మరీ ఫర్ ద న్యూ పీపుల్ ఇఫ్ దే హ్యావ్ జాయిన్డ్ అపాన్. So usually see we have seen about then what are the network monitoring areas and the networking required for the SOC people. We have seen about then what are the various types that we have, which is called then monitored, claimed, controlled, assessed, measured, and unmonitored. These are the different types of the networks that we will be hanging out. So next we have seen about then what kinds of the monitorings that we have, which is called as then two ways that we have seen, which is an endpoint monitoring and then application monitoring is in both the same, which is called an endpoint, and we have the network monitoring. So after that we have seen about then what are the considerations that we need to take into our network for looking into the data. It means then where we need to do. So we need to look it out for the bandwidth, ports, protocols, applications, domains, data packets, and then traffics. So these are the things that we have seen. And next we have seen about then what are the network services that we need to look it out. And we have seen that we are into the DNS, HTTPs, and what are the different the types of the network services that we have we have discussed. And we have seen about then how we need to do upon then what are the sources for the endpoint as well as then application monitoring. That means we have discussed like we have the EDRs, not the EDPs. Sorry, it's my spelling mistake. that is an EDRs, and next we have the XDRs, and next we have an antiviruses, like different kinds of the sources that we have seen, as well as then we have seen for the applications as well as then for the cloud oriented. So these are then different types of then things that we have seen. So this is then whole then things that we have discussed in our 20 minutes till now. So next let us see about then what kind of an alerts that we need to look it out. What are the different types of the incidents that we can see. That means now what we are going to see means we are going to see what is meant by the events, what is meant by the alerts, and what is meant by the incidents. And we are going to see about then what kinds of logs that we will be hang out. So till now we are discussing like then we need to check it out the logs and right. So now we are going to look into then what is meant by the event logs as well as an alert logs, and even we are going to see about then what are the considerations that we need to look it out when we are collecting out the logs, and what are the end goals of logs that we are going to see, and what are the anomalies that we are going to get, what kind of anomalies that we are going to get. So usually whenever a SOC guys, if you look in towards an events, alerts, incidents, usually he'll be referring towards a framework called as an NIST SP 861. So this is some things which he will be looking into then for these kinds of events, alerts, incidents. Events are nothing but any observable occurrence or any observable movement inside any kind of a system or inside any kind of a network. So that is what we usually call it as an network. That is what we usually call as an events. ఈవెంట్స్ అంటే నథింగ్ ఏం లేదబ్బా, చిన్న చేంజ్ వచ్చినా దాన్ని మనం యూజువల్గా ఈవెంట్ అంటాం, దాన్ని మనం ఈజీగా తెలుగులో. సో నెక్స్ట్ వీ హ్యావ్ దన్ అలర్ట్స్. Alerts are nothing but it's an interest which are happen due towards unwanted or unauthorized. యూజువల్గా మనకి రిస్క్ అంటాం చూడండి, ఆ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ అండ్ మూమెంట్లో మనకి అలర్ట్స్ అంటాం. సో దట్ ఈస్ వాట్ మెంట్ బై దెన్ అలర్ట్స్. So next let us see about then what is meant by then incidents. Incidents is nothing but it's a threat or a violation of an policy inside any kind of an digital appliances which doesn't standards into the security practices. So that is what the incidents in the sense means. So incidents is nothing but it's a kind of a threat of an violation which happens due to then not falling into the computer security policies in against towards the security standards or practices. So that is what meant by then the policies. That is what meant by then the incidents. So I hope you doesn't have any confusion between what is meant by the events, alerts as well as an incidents. Okay, I hope I can move further. Okay, so let's move towards the next part. That means an event collection. యూజువల్గా మనం ఈవెంట్ కలెక్షన్ అనేది ఎట్లా చేస్తాం. So event collections usually what we will be doing means we will be collecting them most of the times from the logs or the records. that is an where we usually do upon the events collections, because the logs లోనే మనకి usual గా we'll be having out the events. So most of the logs that we usually collect will be falling under towards an events, because then in the logs only, right, we will be able to see about the different types of the changes, or the different types of the observable content. So that is what we usually call it as an event collection. Okay, so does anyone have any doubts still now here? Okay, so if he doesn't have any doubts, so tomorrow what we'll be doing means we will be seeing looking into the incident management systems.